Chelsea versus Wolves. Can Enzo Maresca find a solution to a potential low block problem? That is what we're going to find out on Saturday night at the Bridge. 8 p.m, weirdly kickoff time for a Premier League game just before the November international break. I think this is a very important game for Chelsea for a number of reasons. To end this period block of the season before we do head into that break in a positive mood, which obviously is very important. But also to show that in this type of game, and when I say this type of game, I mean games of lesser importance or again against teams who are not considered the big rivals. And I think that has been a problem for Chelsea and definitely a concern we've had in recent weeks about Chelsea's performances. So in today's preview, we'll look at Maresca's press conference, we'll look at the opposition, and then I will give you my predicted lineup. Please do get involved in the comments down below. Give me your predicted Chelsea lineups. Get involved across social media at SonOfChelsea. If you're listening on the podcast feed, thank you so much for tuning in. It really does mean a lot. And if you can, drop a positive rate and review on your favourite podcast provider. Really is appreciated as well. So Maresca in his press conference, in terms of team news, the only major thing about this game is Pedro Neto. There have been murmurings of a Cole Palmer return, but I mean, until I see it, it's hard to know. I mean, I'd still assume that Palmer is most likely percentage-wise going to feature after the international break, which is probably the sensible move. So I won't kind of get too excited about that. Pedro Neto is back in training, or at least is likely to feature in training. I think they're doing a little bit later today because, of course, they returned quite late from Azerbaijan. So we'll see whether he gets back into the starting lineup tomorrow. The other thing was him being asked about Wayne Rooney quotes for some reason, but mainly it was to do with the rotation debate. Rotation has been the big conversation since Karabakh. Rotation. My latest piece for Hooligan Soccer, where I post regular pieces for them about Chelsea in the Premier League, go and check it out if you haven't already, was about this issue. And I don't think rotation is the problem. I think selection has been the issue. I think that is the thing you can criticise. And Maresca was right in his press conference to stress that rotation in the modern game is unavoidable, especially when you have a schedule like Chelsea. Rotation is not an evil. It's not something that is the problem and kind of the everything stems from rotation. It really doesn't, because everyone has to rotate. It's about who you rotate in. It's about some of the selection choices that I found a little bit puzzling from Maresca, especially from a central defensive point of view against Karabakh and how that leads into this game. But yeah, I found that a little bit simplistic, because we were all during the summer speaking about, from a transfer point of view, why we needed sufficient depth, because we needed to rotate. So I don't know why everyone's suddenly shocked that we're rotating, because it was something that was quite evident was going to happen this season with the addition of Champions League football, and especially coming off of such a short pre-season as well. Let's take a look at Wolves. Obviously, no Vitor Pereira, no new head coach. We thought that Gary O'Neill will be returning. That didn't happen. Seems like Rob Edwards is kind of top of the list of potential targets at the moment. Of course, he's at Middlesbrough. And I have to say, if I'm Rob Edwards, don't leave Middlesbrough. Don't leave Middlesbrough. It's a bit like Frank at Coventry. Stay in the Championship, try and get promoted. Wolves are in a real mess. And I think that in some ways it's good to see a sporting director at a club like this pay the price, really, for bad recruitment. Wolves can change their head coach as many times as they want, but to me, just from the outside, and if for some chance and for some reason there's a Wolves fan listening to this preview, you obviously will know more about your club than I can express, but it just seemed from the outside they've sold good players and replaced them with worse ones consistently, and that has led them to a place where they are now bottom of the Premier League and look like a team destined for relegation. That is a bigger problem. Can they bring in a head coach that's going to make a difference? I'm not sure. James Collins, who is an academy coach that has been promoted into this role for an interim basis, basically, I assume that it will only be one game. I assume they will make the appointment, whoever it is, before the next Premier League game. And it's kind of double-edged sword with an interim head coach. Does it make that much of a difference? Do you get a bounce from it like a new head coach? Sometimes you see a bounce, sometimes you don't. It's just kind of because you're kind of in that limbo space. But undeniably, this is a game Chelsea have to be winning. There's no excuse, really, given this is a team bottom of the league, devoid of confidence, has been erratic. Chelsea went 3-0 up against them away from home in the last clash, of course, at Molineux. And yeah, the second half was concerning, but there was enough there for Chelsea to show that this is a team lacking so much confidence, so much quality, that they need to capitalise and make it 3 points. And when I'm looking at this game, for me, there is one big selection that Maresca, for me, just has to make. And if he doesn't make it, I think it's going to be disappointing. I'm not saying Chelsea can't win the game if he doesn't make the selection, but I think maybe it makes it a bit easier if he does make the selection. But there are other positions in the team that I know some people will have conversations about. So let's jump into my predicted starting 11. Rob Sanchez in goal. Now, Reece James did play the majority, all of the game against Qarabağ. I would have preferred if he was rested in that game, but Maresca did say himself in the pre-match press conference before Qarabağ, Reece can play 3 games in a week. And Reece should be starting this game as well. I just wonder if, because of what he did in midweek, Malo Gusto will start this game because he's fresh. So from a fitness point of view, Gusto is in a better place, but I still prefer to have Reece James, and then you've got Malo Gusto on the bench. Start with your strongest team, hopefully gain an advantage, and then you can hopefully rotate later in the game if you have that advantage. But even against Wolves, that advantage went pretty quickly. In defence, I'm a little bit relaxed about it. Well, I'm not relaxed about it if he starts Tosin again, if he starts Jarell Hato again. But in terms of Fofana, who I thought played well against Spurs, Achimpong is fresh. I think if he starts this game, I'll be happy to see him start this game, given I thought he absolutely should have started in midweek. And Chalobah too, back to form against Spurs as well. I think Fofana, for his better dominance at set pieces, when I'm thinking about what Chelsea are going to have to counteract in this game, very physical, direct. That's how Wolves got around Chelsea and made it difficult in the second half of that League Cup game a week ago. So for me, I think Fofana, I know some people will be disappointed that Josh Achimpong maybe doesn't start here. Again, I'm pretty relaxed about it. I think either player, I'd like to see Josh getting more minutes. I think it's a good thing to develop him this season. But Fofana, I thought had his best performance for a while against Spurs. Yeah, he wasn't up against much, but I thought, especially from set pieces, long throws, he showed a conviction and an aerial dominance that maybe we haven't seen. So I think Fofana has much of a right to start this game as well. Obviously, alongside Trev Chalobah, Cucurella, back in the left back slot. I think his performance levels do need to increase. I have seen maybe a dip at times in his performance level. Central midfield, Moises Caicedo played far more than we wanted him to in midweek, but that was because Romeo Lavia went down injured. Enzo Fernandez did make a creative difference off the bench. I think he starts here, and I do think moving forward he probably will play a deeper role. It's that kind of balance where I think in bigger games I understand the need and actually the benefit of playing him higher up, but then when you come up against games and opposition like this, I'd prefer to have another creative attack-minded midfielder rather than another defensive-minded midfielder and just Enzo Fernandez. So I think that's what we should be doing in this game, and hopefully Enzo, from a creative, progressive, passing point of view, and also in these type of games as well, his late runs into the box. When you're coming up against a deep defence, it's not just about who's playing a centre forward, who are your wide players, who are your fullbacks. It's about midfielders running beyond the ball, which I think Enzo Fernandez from our midfield is the best at doing currently, and he scores a lot of goals that way as well. Then we get into the three behind the striker. I'm probably going to title the show around this. Estevao has to start, and I've probably titled a preview like that before. I mean, I just don't know why he doesn't start this game. The stats are overwhelming. They really are. They're undeniable about how big of an impact Estevao is having, considering he isn't starting a majority of Premier League games for Chelsea at the moment. Premier League wingers, this is from Data MB. I've got 2 numbers for you, 2 data points here where I think should sway it if you're still thinking that for some reason Estevao shouldn't be starting, which I think is kind of an obvious point. I think most people want to see Estevao starting. Premier League wingers, expected assist per 90 and XG per 90. I'll put it up on screen, but in the top right, Estevao is way out on his own, especially for XG per 90. But on both metrics, he is well above the rest, and that includes some incredible players in the Premier League, as you'd probably suspect. Then Premier League wingers and attacking midfielders, XG plus expected assists per 90. Again, Estevao 0.84, way out in front. The closest to him is Cody Gakpo and David Brooks so far this season with 0.53. That shows you that with the limited minutes he's had, creatively, in terms of the XG he creates per game and the creativity from him in terms of expected assists is very high. It's very consistent. It's very effective. And in a game where Chelsea are going to have the ball a lot, I think are going to be gifted the ball a lot, and are going to have to break down a low block, and you've probably got 5, 6, 7 at the back at times. You need the maverick presence of Estevao Willian. He will make a tangible difference. He will try things that other players don't. He has that courage to go on the inside, to go on the outside, to try audacious things, to play across quicker than others. And I think that is essential for this kind of game. And the flair, the confidence he has, it's obvious for me, has to be starting this game. I'd be really disappointed if he doesn't, because I think he's earned the right to start. He scored in midweek. He was one of the better performers in midweek. So yeah, for me, Estevao needs to be starting. I would keep João Pedro in the team as well. I don't think his performance against Qarabağ was that good, but he did score, obviously, against Spurs. And this is a position that's going to, I think, be more beneficial for him for the long term for who's starting up top. So I think you want to keep João Pedro in the team. He just needs to take more shots. I'm starting to get infuriated. It's not just the data that shows it. If you just watch Chelsea, João Pedro gets himself into some naturally really, really dangerous positions with the ball at his feet, with time to take a shot, and he's always looking for the pass. He's always looking to lay it off to someone. He's got to be more selfish. He's got to be taking shots. I'm not saying that, percentage-wise, that's always the highest quality or obvious decision, but that shot can be saved, that shot can be deflected, that shot can create chaos. I just want to see João Pedro take more conviction and take more authority in these positions, because he's too close to the goal for me in his area of the pitch to not be taking shots. Palmer's taking that shot. I think Enzo's even taking that shot. He needs to be taking shots more often for Chelsea, and that, I think, will help Chelsea's overall attack and probably his numbers as well. Left wing, although Neto is available, I'd actually start Alejandro Garnacho. He's probably going to be confident after coming off the bench and scoring an important goal against Qarabağ. And I also just think, again, this type of opposition, you need runners off the ball. He played well against Sunderland. He scored the opening goal. I actually think it was probably Chelsea's most threatening attacker on a day when Chelsea barely created much against Sunderland. And I also just think that dynamic of right and left wing, you have a player like Estevao, who I know can get on the end of crosses, but it's probably more likely, especially with Reece down that side as well, to receive the ball a lot more, and that's going to be Chelsea's creative side. You need someone from the left who's going to be making darting runs to that back post off the ball, and I think Garnacho is more likely to provide that than maybe Pedro Neto. Neto is a player who wants the ball to feet a lot more. Then up top, Liam Delap. I was very positively encouraged by Liam Delap's cameo, his second half performance against Qarabağ, because he was making runs in behind. He was looking a lot more confident. There was just a few times where a ball gets played into 6-yard box. He's got to be making that run 9 times, 10 times out of 10 when you're a centre forward. But we saw right at the start of the season this combo. I spoke about João Pedro, right, where he can occupy defenders. He's a physical nuisance. Obviously, he's got to very much measure what he's doing on the pitch. Can't go overboard in Navarre age. You can't be a Diego, unfortunately. As much as I love Diego, right? Diego in Navarre age would have picked up a lot more red cards for Chelsea. That's undeniable. So there is a controlled chaos part of Delap that needs to come into his game as he gets more mature and as he gets more experience. But he will be a focal point. You need a focal point in this game. And I think that Delap is kind of an obvious one for me in this game. And seeing how he works around João Pedro, how he could disrupt and occupy probably a back three. They played a 3-5-2 in the last game. I suspect they'll probably do the same. And because teams have found a lot of pleasure in doing it, you need someone who's just very simple, going to pin back the centre-backs. You can play the ball into his feet. He needs to retain possession. He needs to lay off. He needs to bring people into the game as well. And from set pieces, can he be a threat as well from that point? So I just think Delap, it's the right time to start him. He definitely can't play 90 minutes given his recent return from injury. But then you do have Guiu, you do have Tyreek George, who potentially can come off from the bench, and also maybe João Pedro can play a little bit more advanced if you're bringing on someone else like a Gittins potentially, and someone can move forward. So that is my predicted lineup. Please give me yours in the comments below. Hopefully it's 3 points we'll be reflecting on when we review this game on Sunday. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours. Follow across the socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very, very soon.